It's the weekly show with David J. Maloney. This week, David talks to Cassie Calloway of Mobile Baykeeper and Caped Crusader for Kids, Batman, with a song by Rod Stokes. This month's guest band, Tyler Livingston and the Absolutes, and me, Jonna Farmer. Now here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome to everyone at home and in our studio audience to the weekly show. I am your host, David J. Maloney. To my right, filling in for the Mogiles, it's Tyler Livingston and the Absolutes. Again, I'd like to express a special thanks to AA Productions for coming in during the Mogiles' absence and producing sound for tonight's show. According to a new study, drinking 3 cups of coffee a day can trigger migraines, and drinking 3 cups of Starbucks coffee can trigger bankruptcy. And so far this year, Waffle House has brought in a staggering $500 million in revenue. The CEO says their waffles are selling like hotcakes. We're going to do this every time again. So the Wall Street Journal has reported that Jamaica is, believe it or not, is now home to the world's best performing stock market. Jamaican investors have a unique strategy. They buy high and they sell high. NASA's reporting that the Apollo astronauts left a large amount of human waste on the moon. Astronomers are saying that the moon's lunar surface is filthier than Uranus. And 18 years after the September 11 attacks, a trial date has finally been set for the accused terrorists. Naturally, the defense attorneys are seeking a continuance. Finally, there's a new study out that says watching too much porn can cause short-term memory loss, and not to mention short-term memory loss. If you've never seen the weekly show before, keep watching. We typically feature one local guest, somebody who you may already know about or may want to know more about, and one big-name guest. This week's show, we got somebody who's doing something fantastic, doing a lot of fantastic work for our health and waterways and generally our ecosystem. That is Cassie Calloway with Mobile Baykeeper, as well as we have a special interview with Batman character from Caped Crusaders for Kids. They're going to talk about charitable work that they're doing. And lastly, Rod Stokes is back to give us another original song. You don't want to miss this week's show? We'll be right back. Tyler? Our first guest is heavily involved with the Waterkeeper Alliance and is the head of Mobile Baykeeper, an organization fighting for clean water, clean air, and healthy communities. Cassie Calloway couldn't make it to the show tonight, so we're doing her interview by Skype, and here it is. We have Cade Kistler with us now with Mobile Baykeeper, correct?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, Cassie, I guess, couldn't be here. She had a conference or something to go to, correct?
Yeah, she's in North Carolina at a Waterkeeper conference. Yes, sir.
Now, Cade, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm the program director here at Mobile Baykeeper, so I help execute the mission side of our work. Spent a little time working at a shipyard doing environmental compliance before I worked here and have a degree in environmental science from Auburn University.
So that's kind of how you got started in this line of work?
Yeah, I got really interested in how I could try to do something that felt like giving back in this world, but also have some time outside where I really enjoy being. And environmental science was a perfect fit for my interests and skills.
Have you pretty much always had a passion for environmental issues?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it started out, like many people, as a passion for enjoying playing outside, right? Fishing, water skiing, swimming, mountain biking, whatever it could be. If I could be outside, I was typically happy growing up, which transferred into like, hey, let's make it where we can enjoy this for a long time to come, including our kids and grandkids.
Well, if it's something that if your work is something that you enjoy, it makes it feel a little bit less like work.
Absolutely.
Now, Baykeeper, I guess, is part of the Waterkeeper Alliance, right? So, and there is a
there are different member organizations all over the nation, correct?
Yeah, actually all over the world even. There's 300 plus, I think 340 plus member organizations of Waterkeeper Alliance all over the world. It's the largest and fastest growing movement solely to protect clean water. And Mobile Baykeeper does that work, acting as the voice for Mobile Bay and the surrounding coastal waterways in coastal Alabama.
Now, in Mississippi, we've got the Pearl River Keeper doing essentially the same kind of work as the Mobile Baykeeper does, right?
Yeah, they're a newer organization. Obviously, everywhere you go, you have different issues that you may deal with, and they have some different ones, but they have a lot of similar ones to what Mobile Baykeeper does. And they've got a great organization, up-and-coming organization, and Abby Brahms, who's the executive director, and the Pearl River Keeper, which is a title that every waterkeeper organization has, is a fantastic person who I really admire.
Now, we couldn't get Pearl River Keeper on for this particular show, but I was kind of curious if you could speak to any of maybe the broader issues that we along the coast and all over are being affected by.
Absolutely. Well, one that's real timely right now down here, and I know is really prevalent across the United States, but especially in areas where we get a lot of rain, like on the coast, is the issue of sewage spills. Obviously, sewage is not something we want out in our waterways. This is not a partisan issue. Nobody, Republican or Democrat, wants sewage in our waterways, want their kids to be swimming or fishing downstream of sewage spilling into our waterways. And it's a pretty big issue that we deal with it in basically every watershed throughout the U.S.
And actually, Mobile gets more rainfall than most cities in the country. I mean, everybody thinks of. Go ahead.
We're usually the rainiest major city in the U.S. with about 65 inches of rain a year, and it can come very quickly. I know we've gotten 20 inches in a day before.
I mean, most people think of Seattle and Portland as the wettest, cities in the country, but actually, Mobile, I read somewhere that Mobile actually has more inches per year of rain than they do. It just comes down in massive, like 45-minute spurts, and then all of a sudden it's dry an hour and a half later. But
yeah, that's exactly right. People that live here are very well aware of that. Just recently, we got like 7 inches of rain in maybe 12 hours, and you had flooding and these sewage spills that I was referencing going on. And yeah, they have a lot of rainy days in Seattle, but it's just gray and sprinkling. They don't get the kind of rain that we do on the Gulf Coast. And of course, we get a lot of sunshine too, which we love.
Which is a lot better than just that constant misery. I went to undergrad in Rochester, New York, and we would get lake effect snow and lake effect rain. And so it was constantly overcast. And I used to joke that we had 3 seasons: winter, spring, and road repair.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like fun.
No, and it's depressing. It honestly is. So down here we don't have that. Now, Mobile, I know you guys have been doing some fantastic work at Baykeeper. Tell me about that, and what's your motto?
Yeah, I mean, our motto is clean water, clean air, healthy communities, and we really believe that the key to having a strong economy, the key to having a great quality of life, and people wanting to live in a place is having a healthy, vibrant environment. You've got to have these waterways that people want to come down here and fish on and boat on and swim in. And you can only have that if you protect them from pollution, like those sewage spills I referenced. And I can talk more about that issue, but I also want to bring up something that I think, folks tuning in will find really interesting, which is Swim Guide. And this is an app where people can take a look at bacteria testing at beaches around them and make decisions about where they want to swim based on the latest bacteria testing. We update 34 sites every week during the summer around the Mobile, Baldwin County area, and let people know, where it's safe to swim, which is, unbelievably important for folks with families that may be wanting to go out and enjoy their weekend.
Now, what about coal ash? I understand that's one of the biggest fights you guys have on your hands right now because of the timetable. And other states across the nation have had coal ash issues as well. What does that battle look like right now?
Yeah, unfortunately, coal ash is a major issue. Essentially, what you've got going on is 20 million tons of this coal ash that contains everything that doesn't burn off with the coal. It's things like arsenic and selenium, heavy metals, sitting on the side of a major river, the Mobile River, right? And so it's basically just inside an earthen dam, kind of like the levees that you might imagine in New Orleans. And we've seen catastrophic spills of coal ash in Tennessee, over 1 billion gallons spilled into tributaries of the Tennessee River, in North Carolina after Hurricane Florence. And we don't want to see that happen here. You would never put a landfill on the side of a river if you had a choice of where to put it. And other states, North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, they're removing this coal ash. They're taking it from these unlined ponds on the side of rivers and putting it in landfills, upland lined landfills that are appropriate for this kind of material. And, we want to see that happen in Alabama. If it's good enough for others around the Southeast, we think it's good enough for Alabama. And even though it costs a fair amount, it protects our waterways and protects our health.
Hey, what I'm going to do is we're going to take a break so we can let our sponsors have a few ads real quick, and then we're going to come right back with Cade Kistler. We'll be right back. And we are back. Sorry about that, Cade. We had to pay the bills. We are back with Cade Kistler from Mobile Baykeeper. Now, we were talking about coal ash before the break. Tell me a little bit more, for the viewers who don't know what coal ash is, can you tell us what coal ash is and why it's so bad?
Right. Well, I mean, just like when you burn anything, when you burn coal, you have leftover ash. For a long time, that ash has gone into a pond on the side of the river, in Mobile, at least, at Plant Berry. And the problem with it is what's not burned are the things that can make people really, really sick and cause a lot of damage to the environment, whether you're a fisherman downstream or whether you're potentially swimming. There are things like arsenic and selenium and cobalt. And then they can leach out into the river because this pond, it's just surrounded by an earthen levee, a dirt levee, essentially.
Now, you mentioned other states earlier when we were earlier in the interview. What are some of the things that other states are doing now for the environment that we're not doing in Alabama or even in Mississippi that you feel that we should be doing?
Yeah, and I mean, especially as it relates to coal ash, we've seen in Virginia, they've created statewide legislation to remove almost 30 million tons of coal ash to upland line landfills where it's safe, where it's not going to either leak into our rivers or potentially have a catastrophic collapse like we saw in Tennessee and, damage the bay for generations. We've seen North Carolina where their Department of Environmental Quality said, quote, "Science points us clearly to removal and excavation as the only way to deal with this problem." And in South Carolina, where the utility voluntarily agreed to dig up and move all the coal ash in the state. So, Alabama Power has made the case that it's just too expensive to move this coal ash. And if that's true, then it's very confusing as to why Virginia and North Carolina and South Carolina are able to do it. And even in Georgia, with Georgia Power, who's a sister company to Alabama Power, they're moving coal ash. So it seems like it's something that Alabamians deserve, just along with their Southeast neighbors and Mississippians, too, for that matter.
Now, are there any misunderstandings about what y'all do? Like, for example, I know that we were talking a little bit, for lack of a better way of putting it, off Skype earlier, and what you guys do isn't really you said earlier, not a partisan thing. It's not most people, I guess one of the misunderstandings is that because you guys have an environmental interest in things and your job is to basically do things to protect the environment, there's a presumption that there's a liberal agenda. But the reality is it's not at all, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a very conservation has conservative in the word, right? But even beyond that, I mean, I think it's a very bipartisan issue, nonpartisan issue to say that you want clean water. I know folks that are from every religious and political leaning that like to fish, that like to hunt, that like to swim in creeks, rivers, and bays. And so wanting to protect that water, both for our ability to have a beautiful, quality of life, and for our economy, which depends on clean water. Even industry needs clean water to be able to run these processes. It's definitely a nonpartisan issue, and it's something that not only do we work really hard to make it nonpartisan because we care about clean water, we work really hard to be an informed voice of reason. We don't want to be alarmist or sensationalist. We want to make sure we've done our research, gotten the facts, and are giving the public the facts they need to help protect that environment.
So I mean, there's things like fishing, hunting. There's the fishing industry. We're not that far off of where there's a lot of seafood that is basically harvested from the Gulf. There's the economy and tourism. All of that comes into play. So there's an economic aspect of this that is actually a conservative agenda aspect more so than a liberal. So really, like you said, it's both sides should want and need this. Correct?
Absolutely. It's a huge economic aspect. The tourism on the Gulf Coast, that's so unbelievable. And if people start being concerned about the rivers and the bays and the beaches being dirty, being polluted, that could drop quickly. We saw, unfortunately during the BP oil spill, how fragile our whole economy is. And so we want to make sure we protect water for our environment, for our quality of life, and especially for our economy.
Oh, yeah. The BP thing had a huge impact on the economy. Now, one more thing. How can people find out more about Mobile Baykeeper? And a secondary aspect of that is how can they get involved if this is a concern that they share?
Yeah, well, you can find us anywhere on social media at Mobile Baykeeper, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I think even Snapchat, right? So we're out there on social media, and mobilebaykeeper.org. We try to keep our links real simple. So if you want to learn more about coal ash, mobilebaykeeper.org/coal ash. If you want to find out about how to swim and where to swim, mobilebaykeeper.org/swim.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here, Cade. Give my regards to Casey. Again, Cade Kistler with Mobile Baykeeper.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.
And we are back. Our second guest tonight is someone close to our hearts. His work with children's charities across the coast is becoming legendary, and he's always there to save today. Please give a warm weekly show welcome to Batman from Caped Crusaders for Kids. Little wink for Batman, that's cool. So first up, Batman, what is Caped Crusaders for Kids, and how did the mission come about?
Caped Crusaders for Kids is a group where we go and visit sick kids in hospitals. It came about when Lenny Robinson, who was one of the original Batmen who would visit children in hospitals, was pulled over in his Batmobile. The video went viral. After it went viral, his charity work boomed. And then in 2016, he was truly tragically killed. He had purchased an actual Batmobile. He was previously doing it in a Lamborghini. And he purchased an actual Batmobile. And it broke down on the side of the road, and it was struck, and he was killed. We decided after that to carry on his work with Caped Crusaders for Kids.
What is it about Batman that people find so endearing?
I think it's the fact that anybody can be Batman. Most superheroes have superpowers. Batman's a man who had some pretty cool gadgets.
Has it been fun being Batman? I mean, do you have any cool stories that you can tell about it?
When you visit children in a hospital, it's got to feel like a prison to them. When Batman or another superhero shows up, they forget that they're in a hospital for those few minutes. So when they leave, a lot of times, it's not the fact that they were sick that they remember. We've had parents say that their most memorable experience being in the hospital was meeting Batman. There's actually two stories. There was a boy in USA Hospital in Mobile named Tide, named after the Crimson Tide. He had suffered a severe leg fracture, and Batman was his hero. That kid went absolutely bonkers. There was another child whose Batman was also his hero, and he wanted to be Robin the whole day. When we come to hospitals, we sometimes bring gifts and sometimes costumes. So he got to be Robin all day and joined me in visiting all the other children in the hospital as Robin.
If someone wants to get in touch with Caped Crusaders for Kids, what would be the best way of doing that?
We have a website, but also a Facebook page, Caped Crusaders for Kids. You can follow the things that we're doing, see some things that we've done, see where we'll be going next.
Would you like to get more superheroes involved? Is there a way to get more superheroes involved? And if so, what kind of superheroes would you want?
It would be great if we could get more people volunteering to be superheroes with Caped Crusaders for Kids. The toughest parts to fill are the characters who have to look like other characters, like Superman or Wonder Woman. But anybody with the time and the right costume can be Iron Man, Superman, any of the full costume superheroes.
And what can we expect from Caped Crusaders for Kids in the future?
Well, coming up will be the tree lighting ceremony for USA Hospital. Batman's usually there. He brings his Batmobile, which in this case is a black Lamborghini. Takes photos with the children and everyone else.
Jonna, do you have any questions for Batman?
I do have a question for Batman. So there's a good person in this bat suit right now. I can just tell from the energy. You said anyone who can get a hold of a costume can play a part. What about the people who also care about the children and want to get involved in this, may not have the time to wear a costume or may not have the funds to wear a costume? How can they help as well? Just sharing the message maybe, or what can they do to get involved?
I think liking, sharing our social media pages, get the word out so that we could get other people who could be superheroes and participate. I can only be in so many places at the same time.
Well, thank you, Batman and Caped Crusaders for Kids. And we'll be right back. Tyler? Special thanks to Casey Calloway with Mobile Baykeeper, Batman with Caped Crusaders for Kids, of course, Jonna Farmer, my trusty sidekick, and Tyler Livingston, the Absolutes, AA Productions, and Rod Stokes, closing out the night with Pretty Words.
Pretty girl. Everybody in this room knows that's a pretty girl. Man, that laugh, the way she throws her whole head back, Betty feels like her whole world. I should want to see her happy, but I don't. 'Cause that ain't me sitting beside her, and that's all my fault. She needs more than just your pretty words, yeah. She needs someone who knows exactly what she's worth. She forgave me time after time. I just fed her line after line. Now I'm left here with an empty heart that hurts and a mouth full of pretty words. Pretty sad. My life without her ain't been nothing but pretty sad. What a fool. The day she left is when I knew just exactly what I had. Man, I thought she'd just stay with me. I didn't have to try. But even someone strong as she is gets tired of life. She needs a more than just your pretty words, yeah. She needs someone who knows exactly what she's worth. She forgave me time after time. I just fed her line after line. Now I'm left here with an empty heart that hurts. A mouth full of pretty words. A mouth full of